Hey, today is December the 10th. Um, this is for pages 94 and 95. Okay. Today's vocabulary words. The first word is adequate. Okay. And the second word is widespread. Okay. So the word adequate, when I think of adequate, I think of the term like good enough. Is that adequate? Is that good enough? Does that get the job done? Is kind of what adequate means to me. So uh, before I go to the meaning, let's look at the example. What is an adequate amount of a sleep for you to get each night? So how much sleep is enough sleep to kind of get it done? To make sure that you guys are rested, that you are doing well. An adequate amount of sleep for me is blank hours each night. Okay, so um, I'm gonna just look at the response. Enough for a specific need. Good, good enough for a specific need. So enough for a specific need. Okay. All right. So I want you guys to make sure you get that filled in. Adequate. Okay. Now we're looking at widespread. Okay. So widespread. That's a compound word. Wide and spread. Okay. And to me, widespread means that it is all over the place. The coronavirus is a widespread disease, right? It's all over the world. Okay. Um, what is one example of a widespread concern in your school? One example of a widespread concern in my school is blank. Okay, so the response for this, happening over a large area or to many people. Happening over a large area or to many people is the definition of widespread. Okay, so that means that it's happening across the globe, across our school, across our state. It's a widespread. It's not just like a unique individual problem. It's a big problem. It's a multiple person problem. Okay. All right, let's take a look at Brazil and Spain. If you remember yesterday, we were talking about drought. We read about drought. Okay, so in Brazil, the effects of a 2014 drought in Brazil were felt around the globe. Brazil produces 35% of the world's coffee. The drought caused coffee crops to wither and die. With coffee crops threatened by lack of water, the price of coffee rose by as much as 70%. Brazil is the world's largest coffee producer. Drought hurt the country's coffee crops and its economy. Here, bags of coffee beans are ready for roasting. So you can see that in this picture. Okay, so how did drought affect Spain? In 2014, Spain was hit with its worst drought in 120 years. Rainfall in areas of southern and eastern Spain was just at 25% of average levels. The drought had an especially serious impact on farmers. Spain normally produces 50% of the world's olives. Farmers did not have adequate water for their crops. Consequently, olive crops withered. The price of olive oil rose sharply in 2014. Drought took a toll on olive harvest. Here, a worker gathers olives from the ground near Seville, Spain. Okay, so they produce 50% of the world's olives, and so since the drought wiped them out, what did the prices do? They went up, right? Okay, supply and demand. All right, in Africa, you can see this picture. In Kenya, communities together joined to lessen the impact of the devastating drought. Here, farmers tend to their livestock. Okay, in 2011 and 12, Eastern Africa experienced its worst drought in 60 years. Rainfall reached only 30% of normal levels. Crops failed. Livestock and wild animals died from hunger and dehydration. Widespread crop failure caused a famine that killed between 50,000 and 250,000 people. Okay, that's crazy. Crops failed, livestock and wild animals died from hunger and dehydration, and the widespread crop failure caused a famine that killed 50,000 and between 50,000 and 250,000 people. Okay, pretty crazy. So it affected not just their economy and money, but it wiped them out so bad that many people even lost their lives. In China, northeastern and southwestern China suffered from extreme drought in 2014. The drought was the worst in 50 years. A severe lack of rain left tens of millions of people without access to drinking water. In the southwest, sugarcane, rubber, and coffee crops failed. In the northeast, sometimes called China's breadbasket, corn, wheat, and soybean crops withered and died. So local people line up to get drinking water from a well in a village in China's Chongqing province. Okay, all right, so now we want to look key idea. What is one common effect of the droughts described in this section of the text? Okay, so what is one key idea? One common effect of the droughts is what? Okay, I know crops is one of the crops failed. It would be one of them. Okay, yeah, they put crop failure. Okay, how does drought affect human lives? Underline three consequences of the droughts described on pages 94 and 95. Okay, and why, let's see, write a sentence explaining where and why the consequences were most severe. The consequences of drought were most severe in blank because blank. Okay, so consequences of the drought or effects of the drought. Okay, stretch. The author writes that the effects of a 2014 drought in Brazil were felt around the globe. Explain, how can a drought in one region affect people in other regions? A drought might affect people in other regions by blank. Okay, so they're asking, hey, why didn't it just affect that one part of the world? Why did it affect the whole world? Okay, when that happened. All right. Okay, good job. Let's make sure that we get those turned in. Page 94 and 95. I am choosing to not do a do now today because you guys also need to turn in your reading logs. I appreciate those of you who have been taking quizzes and getting our word count up higher and better. So good job to you guys. Make sure that you have averaged 10 minutes per day on our student application. If you haven't, then you need to spend extra time today, whether it's here at school or at home, so that you can bring your average up. Okay, I'm going to grade you guys based on the average of how much time you put into student application each day. A minimum of 10 minutes, if you guys can remember. You'll also need to turn in your reading logs, as I mentioned before, and have a great weekend other than that. So thanks so much, everybody, and have a great day. Have a great weekend.